versus.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this week's ICAT Playdate. I'm super excited with our guest that we have here and the team that he'll be introducing. Before we get started, a couple of housekeeping and announcements. So first off, the Roger and Debbie West Student Seed Grants. These are grants for students at Virginia Tech who are working across disciplines to do cool things. There's information on our website about it. The applications are due on October 8th. If you have questions about those, there are several folks here who can answer those. Also, if you're participating in the Virginia Tech Science Festival, I'm loving that we're getting a lot of applications for that now to provide some science experiences either online or in person. Those applications are due September 30th, but if you get your application in earlier, you'll get scheduled earlier, so that'd be cool. We are in Experience Studio today, a little bit different environment for us. The Cube has been used this week for drone symphonies. We've been flying drones and making music, so I thought that was pretty cool. Wanted to share that with you. So some of our usual screens, the cyclorama is out right now in that highly configurable space. So we're in here today, so welcome. Glad you found us. Glad you're here. Glad you're here with us online as well. If you have questions, if you're online, I hope you'll click that link and type those questions in as you have them. And if you're in the room, if you'll just raise your hand and I'll come to you with the microphone so that the people online can hear you. We'll take those questions and get them to our speakers as we go. And also a reminder that you are on camera. This is a 360-degree camera that's streaming out to the world, so know that you're on camera right now. Did I hit all my things? Good. Thank you. And I'm Phyllis Newbill. I am the Associate Director of Educational Networks at the Center for Educational Networks and Impacts here at ICAT. And so I'm here to welcome you to the ICAT Playdate and host this morning. And I'm so excited this morning. We're talking about watersheds and virtual tours of watersheds. We're obviously a thing that we're doing in the world right now is finding new ways to do things virtually. And ICAT's been doing this work for even before the pandemic.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We've been doing this for 10 years.
For 10 years. Okay. So I'm pleased to introduce this morning Dr. Cully Hession.
All right. I'm not used to using mics, but so before I start, I have two confessions I want to make. One is that I actually love Stroubles Creek. It's kind of weird, but you know, I'm here in Blacksburg. I came to school here for my BS and MS, and Virginia Tech's only here because Blacksburg's here, and Blacksburg's only here because of Stroubles Creek. So I appreciate Stroubles Creek for that reason. And the second thing is I was here from 1979 to 86 as an undergrad and a master's student, and not once did I hear the word Stroubles Creek and my department's on that side of the drill field and all my classes are on that side, so I crossed that poor creek 10 times a day probably and never knew it was there. And so part of this is making sure that doesn't happen to current students, staff, and faculty, that they know Stroubles Creek is here, they care about it, and they appreciate it. All right, so I gotta go two-handed here. So this is Virtual Watersheds, an immersive experience at the confluence of water and society. And we have many collaborators. Most of them are in Annapolis for some reason today, for different reasons. But so there's myself in biological systems engineering. Annie Dubner is a master's student in our department. Tiffany Drape's in ALC, and she would be the evaluation person once we actually do something like in the Cube or in the cyclorama. She would do the questioning before and after, see what kind of things people learn. Katie Meaney, who has now left Virginia Tech, she's getting her PhD with Smithsonian, I believe. And so she's kind of our design person. And every time I touch the slide, she'd get mad at me and tell me to put it back. And then Nicholas Polly, who's in ARC, and he's kind of our 360 person, and Peter Sforza, who's Center for Geographic Information Technology, because we're doing a lot of spatial data analysis here. So I didn't realize we had to do this for one of Katie's class. So a lot of people don't remember maybe, or don't know what a watershed is. Basically the land area where a drop of water falls, it flows to the creek. And so it's the area at a point in the creek or a river or even a lake or the drill field, the duck pond. It's the area of land that drains into that point. and we all live in one. You're in Stroubles right now. Really, it's right there underground somewhere. So you're in lots of watersheds. So I don't know if anybody can point. I should give the flicker and let someone point to where we are. I'm at a weird angle here. So we're somewhere down in there. So you're in Stroubles Creek watershed, you're in the New River watershed, you're in the Kanawha watershed, you're in the Ohio, the Mississippi, and the Gulf of Mexico watershed. And if you go a couple miles over there, you can be in the North Fork Roanoke. You can even be in the Chesapeake Bay, about 4 miles that way. So there's watersheds everywhere. The water's going everywhere. We all live in it. And these little creeks are what determine, so Stroubles Creek, Tom's Creek, Crab Creek, they're all the ones that decide what New River's like. This is just to show you that Blacksburg, there's quite a history here. This is a 1964 map, I believe, and you can see Blacksburg here. And what I want to point out is these are the two branches, main branches of Stroubles Creek right here. They laid out 16 blocks, basically decided where to put that depending on where the springs were and where the tributaries were. So everything here is laid out because of where the creek is. And then this is just showing a more modern view of it. We're obviously up here somewhere. Where are we? Up here, sorry. And Stroubles Creek runs here into the New River. This is Slate Creek here. So I just want to show the watershed. Again, this is the area, so if we're talking about that point right here where it hits the New River, this is the area of land where if a raindrop falls, it's going to go out to that point or get stored for a while, but we won't get too deep on that. And as you can see, the upper watershed is basically Blacksburg and Virginia Tech. So the poor Stroubles Creek's been pretty hammered for how many years? 100, 220 years or so by Virginia Tech and Blacksburg. Maybe not that long for Virginia Tech, but and it's here because, all that stuff's here because of Stroubles. So it's vital to the past, present, and future of Blacksburg. And the drainage area, as I said, is basically Virginia Tech and Blacksburg. But no, most people don't know it's there. They ignore it. They don't care about it. We put it in pipes. Oh, there's one. So here's one where they put it in a pipe. This is, I think it's 1937. And if you look at this, this is War Memorial back here. So Eggleston would be here. And this is actually William Black's house, which used to be back here. And they moved it here. And then after here, I think it ended up down on McCoy Falls Road somewhere. I'm not positive about that. You probably know. But so they buried this. They started burying it big time. It was daylighted just in front of War Memorial Gym up until about this point, and then they buried it back here behind Eggleston. So when you see pictures of flooding behind Eggleston, that's why. But they put it in kind of weird because this is the stream bottom still there. They actually just put 3 sides around it and left it connected to the bottom, which is interesting because most of the time they just put it in a pipe. So the one good thing is you still get groundwater, surface water interaction. So this is just an aerial. As you see, it's a little old. Anybody remember this place? I used to eat there a long time ago. But Katie asked me to kind of sketch on here real quick where the stream is. And so there is one here, and the only way I knew this, I haven't seen much evidence on maps, but I was just told earlier today that they had to put this building on piers because of this branch right here. And I've seen pictures of it being buried, kind of like that other photo when they were building the mall here. And then this is the main branch coming through right behind it actually runs a little bit back here. And then back in here and cuts over here, goes to the duck pond. And then you have Webb Branch, which comes back behind the science area here into the old ice pond, and then the ice pond hits duck pond, and then boom, we're out. So we buried it. So it's no wonder I never knew it was there. I think I did take a picture of it once in 1979, right down there when I was taking a black and white photo class. You guys ever heard of that? Sorry. Anyway, so the students only notice it, most of them I would say, when it does this, right? So the drill field floods. And as I said, everything's here. The drill field's there because basically that was William Black's pasture, which was also a pond, which it looks like right there. And it was a low wet area, so they didn't build on it, but it's where they put their cows. And then this is what I was talking about. I think this may be from '85 when I was still here. This is behind Eggleston. And so you can see the creek was buried there. So when they got a big flood, you know, that little box culvert couldn't handle it and it comes out. So we've been doing this for a while. I hooked up with Nicholas Polly's probably 10 years ago, maybe a little longer, and Peter, trying to figure out how do we get people to care about the stream. When they don't see it, they don't care about it. So we've been working on this, introducing virtual watersheds, the newer grant we have from ICAT. Geez, I can't even tell you when we got this grant because we've had 2 years of weirdness, so I don't really remember. But we're still working on it. So there's different things we've been working on. First is documents and maps. We've got the online tours, outdoor tours. We have some exhibits, so if we were able to use the cube, or not the cube, but the cyclorama, which we will eventually do, we'll use that for exhibits. But we also have it set up so that we could do exhibits like in the elementary school gym. And then we have course modules that we're working on. So the focus is historical, biological, and civil, so infrastructure stuff. This one is my favorite, but it's probably the most boring. I went down some serious rabbit holes here to find everything I could, old reports, old theses, old dissertations, old anything that I could find, maps related to Stroubles Creek. The one thing we have here is because Virginia Tech's here, we tend to have students do stuff on Stroubles Creek just because it's there and they do their research on it. And this is one that Annie helped me a lot with, and it's not as easy as getting the VT Knowledge Works and saying Stroubles Creek. It doesn't show you much. So I dug deep and I got 170 documents. I'm sure we'll find more, you know, from historical documents from the state to old publications to old theses and dissertations. I think the oldest thesis we have is 1911. No, it might be 1913. Historical maps. So we're trying to catalog all this and make it available. So if you look at this, we don't have this available yet, but at some point you can click on these and these are all available. I'm still working on kind of keywords for this. But so many people use Stroubles Creek now for research. It'd be nice if they could go back and pull up old research because some of this stuff is amazing. So the oldest one I found really is, this is a state health commissioner report from 1911. And basically, they came to Blacksburg, checked it out, and said, there's no sanitary sewers, and they're basically dropping their sewer and their privies into the same thing they're drinking out of. And everybody's sick, and they can't figure it out. So this is when they kind of really said, hey, you guys got to do something. And I have a 1913 one where it mentions that they added a treatment plant, but that is an old treatment plant that I haven't found. And then there's one that came a little later, just below the duck pond, which I think I have a picture of. So some of these are just random things I've found in my little rabbit hole. All right, so some of these reports are so cool. I got a couple in my backpack back here because they could be revisited. So this one, I think it's the 1913 one, but there's a map in the appendix that shows you all his sampling points. So we sampled water quality, bacteria, even bed sediments, and I think this one did macroinvertebrates too. So we can go back a lot of years later, more than 100 years later, and kind of hit the same sample points and see how things have changed. This one's similar. This is the first treatment plant I've been able to find, which is just downstream of the duck pond. So in that parking lot, if you're looking downstream on the right, that's where this one was. This is the second one that's further down by Merrimack Road, and then now it's down farther. But these old reports are really cool because they tell you the condition of the creek back then, and we're able to now kind of go back and say, okay, how have things changed? And then just maps. There are lots of maps available. We're trying to get them categorized, get them scanned. If they're not scanned, the library has been incredibly helpful. Some of those theses and dissertations weren't in the ETD, or they weren't in VT Knowledge Works, and they pulled them out of storage and scanned them for us. All right, then we have online tours. Sorry, I'm letting my microphone get away from me. So we've been taking a lot of 360 imagery, 360 videos, all these documents and images, we have created 3D models. We also have LiDAR on a drone, so we can get three-dimensional imagery that way. And then we have water quality data that I collect downstream behind Fox Ridge. And we're adding sound too, so we're recording like streams and things so that we can use them in our exhibits. The first online exhibit, this is kind of one we use to kind of organize ourselves. It's just a Google Earth tour. And so I've gone out and identified all these points I think are interesting. And we've taken pictures there, and we have every point has old maps or old images if we have them, and information about the points. So that's kind of our jumping off point. And you can see this is actually old stuff that we did with 360 imagery at the Streamlab. And you know, we just posted on Google Maps. We didn't try to do anything, but we get lots of hits. So we just went back out, say we loosely. And he went back out and got new ones. So now we have 5 years later. So we have, and this is a restoration site. So it's very interesting to change over time. We're also doing outdoor tours. So you can walk around. There might be QR codes. And this is when I first met Nicholas, he kept throwing this word fusality out. And I was Googling it and I couldn't find it anywhere. He just makes stuff up, just so you know. Hopefully he's watching this. But so virtual and physical spaces coexist, and each space is rich in information, and we need a way to get back and forth between them. And so that's kind of what he works on a lot. So you can envision this, whether it's online or walking around town, and each of these little bubbles has a QR code or these locations. So let's say we're at Spout Spring, which is one of the main springs, and you could take your phone, click on that QR code, and be in a 360 image, and it also has in it information about the site, like an old map showing 16 blocks and how Spout Spring is the reason that 16 blocks is where it is, and old photos, things like that. So this could be online, it could be a walking tour, or it also could be in the cyclorama. You can actually, if you want, if you have your phone, you should be able to click on this and scan it. I'll put it up maybe at the end if you want. I think I have to keep moving. She's checking her watch. Oh, there we go. You should be able to go to our 360 image and be at Spout Spring. It worked the other day. That's all right. And, you see it? Yay! Oh, I thought I added one. Okay. I have a picture of that later, just in case. But we also have video too. And what we're working on is, Nicholas is working on this, where you could go into the orb or the video or the 360 image, and it would have that information I was talking about, like maps and old photos that you could swipe through them while you're doing the tour. We're still working on that because space is an issue on some of that. Now Katie's class, she had a design class that did a bunch of work on kind of branding. And so I'm going to flip through some of these pretty quick and get to the meat. You know, these are actually signs that would be on like a normal stop sign or something like that. This is one I like, the Watershed Moment. And if you look, so these are the signs that were designed by our students. Some of them were printed out, and we're actually planning on trying some of these out. So you can see that's W for water or watershed. And so it might be signs out there. This would be for a walking tour. And I don't know if you can see it, but there is a QR code here. And so all this stuff kind of ends up being fodder for an exhibit, right? So it could be in the cyclorama. Nicholas has already done some stuff in the baby cube. I don't think he calls it that, but that's what I call it. I think it's the Hokey Cube. It's the one over in Torgerson. And we're working on school activities. And so you could imagine this either in the cyclorama or even in a gym at the school. You have QR codes on little stands, and maybe you have a sketch with Sharpie right on the floor showing the stream, and then students can walk around and see how the stream gets from smaller to bigger. And if it has sound with it, you can hear how it's, you know, quieter up here and a little louder down here. So there's all kinds of things we're doing. And here's one of our 360 images with, you know, where you have the VR on and you're in that's actually Spout Spring. So you can do that now. We just don't have it like really public. And then this is kind of more from Katie's class where they did all kinds of mock-ups for signage and things to do to make the pace, make it more, make everybody know that Stroubles is there. So T-shirts, I'm gonna make some of these. Signage, so really cool, interesting things. This is the Triple Point, which I'm not gonna get into, but it's about 4 miles up there in Preston Forest where at one point you can pour water 3 different ways and end up in totally different directions, places. And they even we did some tours with Native American faculty, and they were pointing out the different plants and things that natives would have used back before Europeans got here. And so they even did some informational packets for that kind of information. So pretty much I'm at the end, everything is where it is because of where the creek is, period. You're in this room because of Stroubles Creek, whether you like it or not. That's a quote from the new article that came out. So with that, I'll say thank you, and I'll take any questions.
Thank you so much. This is a fascinating project, and I love hearing about the different ways that we can explore both in the real world, on the phones, in the virtual space, and also as an exhibit. I think there'll be a lot to explore then with all of those concepts. I know that you said that Tiffany Drape is Dr. Tiffany Drape is working on your evaluation, but can you talk about how you might measure impact, even thinking about how people, learn the concepts through those various technologies?
Yeah, so she's actually worked with me on, we have a summer research program as well. We just finished our 3rd year at a second bout of it. And we've done it a couple of ways. One is kind of questionnaires before and after, or before and after, but then also concept maps. So a concept map would be like you put water quality in the middle, and then you start drawing things around it, all the things that might impact water quality. And so it might be, development or rainfall or soil type. I'm making stuff up. And then you start connecting them. And what they do is we do that at the beginning, and then they go through their summer, and then they do it again at the end. And you can kind of count the connections, and you hope that has increased. And so we would do a similar kind of thing where maybe the middle is watershed, and you want them to tell at the beginning what affects a watershed or what affects Stroubles Creek. And they have to write some things. And then they go through the training, and then at the end, hopefully, they've made more connections. Those are 2 ways I know she's done it.
Thank you. Do we have questions in the room? I'll come to you. Is that me?
I see on the slide up there a couple of the 16 frogs. Could you say a little bit about that?
Yeah, so actually, this one right here, when the frogs were just about to be put in, they let me borrow them, and I took them over to my buddies in the, they all retired and the center's done now, but they were in Torgerson, and they scanned 3 or 4 of the frogs for us so that we could use them in our game. So this was from our previous ICAT project where we created a Finding Frogs game, a digital game, and this is at one of the science parties you have here. And so that's one way. And then also in that tour that we have, anytime we're at a point where a frog was, we have a picture of it, and that would be part of the tour as well. And we usually have an explanation of what his name is and why it's there.
Can you talk about the 16 frogs? Like, what is that installation?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
I
that's
just
okay.
assume everybody knows what
We
that
all
is.
know that. Go ahead.
So Blacksburg is 16 blocks. So, and you might have to help me with when this all started, but I'd say about 5 years ago, they might have been a little longer ago, to make sure, for the same reason we're trying to do this, they're trying to make people aware of the freshwater heritage, Stroubles Creek in Blacksburg. So they put 16 frogs to match the 16 blocks. They're not at the block spot. And they're at various different places that have some kind of water importance. So there's one out in front here, which I just took a picture of this morning for the first time. And, because there's kind of a buried stream over here. And then there's one at the Black House, and there's one at Spout Spring. There's one where the stream is above ground next to the Main Street Inn. So there are 16 of them, and mostly just to make people aware of this poor little creek that we've been hammering our whole lives. Sorry.
What other questions? Oh, got one back here.
This is the climate change question. So, with recent, I guess my question is with the combination of how the citizens and students in Blacksburg interact with that creek and the changing climate, what are your chief concerns right now?
Well, I think that they're probably going to become more aware of it just because they're going to see it more often. You know, we've had some big events lately. Last week, I do everything by how deep it is at my stream lab, but you know, at the stream lab, the stream's about 0.1 meter deep normally. Last week it went to 1.6. So I'm surprised we didn't get more flooding. And then, what was it, like a month ago, we got to 1.8 and it flooded Draper Road and probably flooded behind Eggleston. I just wasn't there to see it. And it flooded at the end of the drill field as well. So I do think that climate change might help us because it's going to make people think, oh, geez, there's something here. There's a stream here. It's flooding here more than I'm used to. So they'll see it more often. How to fix that is probably daylight the stream, give it some floodplain, let it release a little bit. But then we'd probably have to get rid of some buildings or something. And I have pushed the town a little bit, and I haven't gotten much success there. But when they do a redevelopment like the edge, I begged them to give me 20 feet. Give me 20 feet, move the edge back a little bit. That's a apartment complex. And it's got the stream and gabion baskets. Give me 20 feet, move the buildings back 20 feet, and then I would have a floodplain and the stream would be able to release itself a little bit and reduce flooding downstream. But it's hard to do that, and I get it, you know, because the edge people want to make money in there. They want to have as many apartment complexes as they can, rooms. I kind of answer that.
Other questions? Let me walk up and look online too. There's more. Apologies. So historically, this one's coming from online. Why do you think these amazing watersheds were covered up? We've got this. We love streams. We love the duck pond. So why do we channel them and cover them up to begin with?
That's a good question because I wouldn't have done it. But I think, well, there's a couple things. And this is why I have a passion for small streams because they're so easy to bury. Right? You can't bury the New River. You probably could if you really wanted to, but these little guys where maybe they're not flowing all the time. With ours, Stroubles flows all the time because the springs flow all the time. It doesn't matter how dry it is. They're always flowing. But you could be in a different watershed where it might dry out. The little guys might dry out during the summer. And so, let's put this in pipe. It's not doing us any good. So I think that's one reason is it's easy. And then you think about it, they put the town here because of Stroubles Creek, but then the town grew and they just decided to bury it so they could put more buildings. But I also think we polluted it, so we didn't want to see it anymore too. So there's this combination, because they used it as drinking water at first, but then you see pictures and they're driving through it, the horses are pooping in it, and they're pouring their privies in it. And so they probably got pretty nasty too, and they're like, well, between this, we want to develop it and it's nasty, let's put it in a pipe. Where
does Blacksburg water come from now?
Blacksburg comes from the New River.
Okay, so we're not using Stroubles Creek as a water source at this point.
And it's been a long time. I know they were using it in the early 1900s, but I'm not sure when they stopped using it for drinking water.
Well, we are at time, so I want to thank you again. This has been such a expose, daylighting this stream for us, and I appreciate you sharing your work on it, and I'm excited to see where it's going next. We'll be back we will not be back next week. Next week is fall break. So we'll be back 2 weeks from now. Are we in the Cube next time? Maybe. Probably. Yes. So we'll be back either here or there, but we'll be back in person. So we'll look forward to seeing everyone then. And thank you again for your attention this morning.